Trooper Ted L. Benda, Iowa State Patrol, Iowa. Colorado Wildland Firefighter Medic, Marshall Grant Brookfield, Grand Lake, Colorado.
Welcome back to American Sons Podcast. My name is Christian.
Hey, it's Dylan.
So before we get started, we just want to give a special shout out and thank you to the Scooter Brown Band for letting us use their music for our intro.
The song American Son. It's awesome.
Great song. And we're just going to jump right into it. But today we're getting into some delusions of society.
Yeah, delusions of modern society. I think that's if we were titling this something other than the Life as an American, that would be the perfect title, because that I believe a lot of it comes from what we've discussed multiple times before, apathy. But yes, I believe a lot of people are living in a delusional state. Not so much delusional where they're like babbling or running down the road naked, or what you might immediately think when you hear, oh, dude, that person's delusional. They're delusional in that they think
something is the
Joe
way
Biden's
actually,
up there telling the truth.
Right.
Or that the federal government has your best interest in mind when they're giving you out welfare. Where's that money coming from in the first place? Or that college is the only way to go now. What else? We talked about
there's a million. There's
a million.
Things.
I mean, personal responsibility.
The fact that, this is a delusion itself that maybe you're just lying to yourself. You'd rather spend 2 hours on TikTok when you come home from work rather than learning a new skill and making that into an income.
Distractions.
Or reading a book.
Right.
That in itself, it might not be a quote-unquote delusion, but that's kind of what we're aiming for. So the first thing we should talk about, because Hunter's not here for this one. Hunter's out in
we miss him.
Hunter's out in Colorado. We miss him. But
we wish we were there with him, though.
We do. I don't like him right now. He's been sending us pictures. It's absolutely beautiful out there. He made a video, a TikTok, and you can go and find it if you want to. And they've been feeding deer at their house. And he equated that to the welfare system and how if you constantly give people more and more and more, they're eventually going to get dependent on you.
So what party... We're getting political, but that's okay. What party typically, predominantly, pushes the welfare system?
No, the left.
Sure.
Democrats.
Why is that? Because they know people inherently want free stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want free stuff, Christian?
No. I'll take a free coffee from Wawa.
Sure. But, and if someone walks down the street and says, hey, I'll give you a free gun, or I'll give you a free car...
Yeah, that's a little different.
Yeah, but you get my point. I'm trying to make a point. It's very general, but it's just a point. The desire, when someone says, hey, do you want this for free? You would say, heck yeah.
Yeah, that's human instinct.
Yes. Yeah. You're appealing to someone's desires. However, people don't realize it comes with a price tag that you don't see. But here's the thing. The reason the left pushes that so much is because by doing so, they are recruiting voters in general. I shouldn't say a voter. They're recruiting voters. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this guy's giving me an EBT card, and I can go get filet mignon.
Yeah, this was something Trump was about. And now there is good times for where the welfare says unemployment. You have a family of 5.
It's a broken system.
It's a broken system, but sometimes it does do good things. You have a family of 5, you have kids you need to feed, and you're in a very tight spot, and that could come in clutch when it absolutely needs to. But I think, more so I know, there's more people abusing the system than there are that are using it correctly. Right. And the thing is that Trump was about this, and I think he said this in a speech at some point, so don't quote me, but when someone lives off of welfare, if I give you $100 every day and say, here you go, you're going to say, all right, well, if I'm getting $100 a day, I don't need to go to work.
Right.
I can live off of this, right?
And so I'm going to support the person who continues to do that.
Right. You get lazy, you get complacent.
Yep.
Whereas if I said, hey, come work for me and I'll give you $100 a day.
Or 110.
Now you have now you have an initiative. You have to do something in order to get something.
Right.
And that's rewarding, but that also builds you up as a person.
Builds character.
It does.
Yeah.
And that's something that those who abuse the welfare system,
especially, yeah,
are being, they're being, it's degrading them in that sense.
They don't realize it, but you know what? That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I'm glad you made that, because I tell you the truth. A lot of people that I know personally that have used the welfare system or have abused the welfare system, and they've admitted it themselves.
It just happened all during COVID.
Once they've stopped. Well, that's just, yeah, a lot more initiative. But they've all voiced to me, or that I've heard, that they just feel better about themselves when they're earning their own stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, part of the reason why we get on this topic, it's kind of a funny story. So, you know what? This is one of the fun podcasts, so I'll just tell the story. I am sitting at home, and I get a message on Facebook Messenger from this guy. He's like, hey, do you know me? Something like that. And I'm like, dude, no, I'm sorry, I don't remember you. That's what he said. Do you remember me? No, sorry, I don't. And he's like, funny thing, we're actually cousins. And I'm like, oh, frick, no kidding. So sorry, I don't remember you. Chris.
Awkward.
Yeah, not really, though. I'll be honest with you. It's for better or worse. I don't feel awkward very often. My wife makes fun of me for it sometimes because I create an awkward situation. I'm not awkward, but maybe I should be more often. But anyways, he's like, oh, dude, it's all good. It's he joined the Navy. He's older than I am. But we hadn't seen each other in 12 years or so. So anyway, he's like, I'm a listener. I'm a big fan of what you're doing. I think it's great. I'd love to reconnect. And I'm like, yeah, right on, dude. Family. That sounds great. So anyway, skip ahead a couple weeks, and we had exchanged numbers, and we were staying in touch a little bit. And then he lives in Virginia, and I had to go to Virginia for a revalidation, couple courses for my job, and I had to run down there. And to be honest with you, I forgot to reach out to him. I had thought about it beforehand, but then I forgot. And he texted me the morning that I was down there. And I was like, oh, dude, crazy coincidence, but I'm like close to you now for a work thing. And he's like, dude, we should get dinner. I'm like, yeah, we should get dinner. And as I said before, he's a listener. So he and his wife and I went to dinner. And so we started talking, and they're such good people. Full disclosure, I didn't remember him. I don't know what he's like. Didn't know what he was like. And I was like, man, is this a little creepy? The guy reached out to me out of nowhere. No, the guy's awesome. I love him. I hope he and I are able to reconnect or continue to reconnect and get closer. And he's mentioned the fact that he wants to move back up here closer to us on the Eastern Shore. And I hope he does, because we have a lot of things in common. He's a cool dude. The guy's 6'8", I think he told me. Oh, he's a big dude. He's a big guy.
That is big.
I tell you what, he's on my team. If I'm picking a dodgeball team, number one pick. But anyways, so we discussed a lot during dinner, good things, catching up, and then also stuff about like what's going on, podcast stuff, current events, whatever. So anyways, on my way to where we record, I was like, hey, dude, can you think of anything you'd like to hear us talk about? Similar to what you and I do, and me, you, and Hunter, when we say to our listeners, hey, if you guys would like to hear anything, please message us. Being that I'm family with this guy, I reached out to him, hey, anything you want us to talk about? And he responded, and we just were talking about, like we just started this episode, the Delusions of Modern Society. We talked about people not being responsible, and I'd like to get into this a little bit more when I finish this short story. But we also talked about people not being willing to think critically, critically think, analytically think for yourself, and therefore make an educated decision as best you can. and not just do things blindly. And so he asked us to talk about that briefly. So that's what we're going to do. And then he sent me a little thing here. It's just a quote. And it says, "You cannot raise your children as your parents raised you, because your parents raised you for a world that no longer exists." And the more I think about it, the more true I believe that is. I've talked about it with my friends. I mean, for better or worse, some things worse and some things better. I would say more worse nowadays than better, but in some ways things are a little bit better. But my dad, our parents, whatever, they were able to do things when they were our age that you and I can't do now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Your kids could walk home from school. They could go take their bikes and ride down to the beach 15 minutes away.
You could leave your front door open.
You could leave your front door unlocked, your keys in your vehicle, stuff like that. I mean, that we don't talk about that very much. And I'm not just saying us three here at the podcast. We, as a society, that's not talked about at all. And why is that? Why in the last, let's just say 50 years, why have we gone from people being able to leave their front and back doors unlocked day and night, windows open, to the point where you're locking your car and you live a mile off the road?
I'll tell you why.
You know what I mean?
I know exactly why.
Why is that?
I don't think, as far as the people go, the same people that were here now are the same people who were there 20, 30 years ago. Like, the people haven't changed. You know what's changed? The amount of media that throws out, or what does media do?
Well, it's supposed to inform.
It's supposed to inform, but what is their ultimate goal? It's to get clicks.
Well, now, yes.
So what really...
Back then it wasn't.
Right. What really gets clicks?
Hot topics.
Crime.
Sure.
This girl got sexually assaulted by that stuff we should report on, but that's all they report on. And when you report on crime, murder, carjackings, kidnappings, when you report on that stuff over and over and over and over and over again, at some point, that's what drives the narrative. And that's what people are thinking about, which would cause your general population to lock their doors, keep their car keys in their house, tell their kids they can't ride their bike down the street 15 minutes away.
I wasn't following you at first. I mean, I was following you, but I was like, But then you brought it around, and
Full
I'm
circle.
like, yeah, that's
It makes
true.
sense.
It does, but I think it goes even deeper in that it's the way people are raised now. I think it's societal. I think drugs is a bit of an issue. It wasn't so much back then, 50 years ago.
Here's the thing to think about. The kids being raised there's a lot to that. That's a deep issue, but that is part of it. But think about this. With as a
technologically
advanced we are, thank you. I had a tongue twister. As far in as we are, everyone has a phone, everyone has a camera. We have Ring doorbells now. We have security cameras everywhere. We have cameras just everywhere. You would think people would feel safer and more inclined to keep their car unlocked, to keep their front door unlocked, because we have so many security cameras and everything now to alert us, to watch for people, get faces of criminals, doesn't that make sense? You would feel like there's more protective, or not protective, but there's more like assurance. That's a good word for it. That if something happens,
you'll catch the guy.
You'll catch him. Does that make sense?
Yeah, a little bit, but I don't think that's the reason. I think that's
that's not the reason. I'm saying think about it. It's just something to think about. We're so advanced with technology. I can't say it right now.
That word's getting you.
It is. We're so advanced that you would think society would be like, oh yeah, you know what? We're safer now than we used to be. But that's not how we think.
Yeah.
So what's causing that? That's just something to think about.
Yeah, I think it's a deep issue. Definitely, it's a deep issue. But to bring us back to the whole people, no. It all ties together, I believe.
I just spent like a minute trying to figure out how to say that word. So,
no, I do think it all ties together. But excuse me, I think that people living in the delusion of somebody else is going to do it for me. That honestly is a very prevalent way of thinking. Somebody else will do it for me. You're at work. You're at work. Even people who are working. You're at work and you're like, I don't feel like doing that.
Well, even now with COVID, someone else will go to the school board meeting.
Someone
else
sure.
will say something.
Sure. Yes. You know what? I really like the point you just made because that really brings to what we're trying to do. Aside from being completely pro-freedom, we're trying to encourage people to stand up. And you just hit a nail on the head. And it goes back to everything. It's something that we touch on all the time, which is the apathy thing. Somebody else would do it. Somebody else would say it. Somebody else would stand up. No, it's got to be you. It's got to be you. And people need to open their eyes, pull their heads out of the sand, don't hit your buddy over the head with a lead pipe, but try to start working on your coworkers, working on your friends, working on your family that may be living in this delusion that that things are all fine. Start just working on, just having conversations with them. And if you start bringing things to their attention, eventually the seed is going to be watered. You're planting the seed, something else is going to water it eventually.
Yeah. How many people are there around locally? Because I'll make this local. How many people are there around us that think like us, are basically the same people?
Most of them.
And they share stuff on Facebook, but they won't go somewhere in public and voice their opinion because they're scared of what's going to happen.
Again, most of them.
Because they think someone else is going to do it.
I'll tell you what. The people at Southwest Airlines.
That's a good example.
However many pilots. I didn't dive overly deep in the issue because I've been swamped the last week. So I haven't, admittedly so, I haven't stayed up to date on the very current events. But we all know that Southwest had to cancel. I've seen up to 1,800 flights.
Dylan, it was due to weather.
It was due to weather, right? But no other airlines was affected. I tell you, the weather that affects Southwest, that must be something else. But anyways, those pilots, because what really happened was employees, they all took vacation time at the same time. Excuse me. They all took vacation time at the same time to protest the vaccine mandate for the company. And long story short, they won. Southwest rescinded that mandate. It's optional, obviously. And so kudos to those people. But what did they do? They didn't wait for the people at
Delta,
JetBlue, American Airlines to stand up. They didn't wait for those other pilots, those other companies to do it for them. They did it themselves. So I wish I could shake every one of their hands. I don't care if we lean the same way or think the same way politically or oh gosh, now I'm having trouble.
Physiologically?
Philosophically. Spiritually, whatever. Man, I guess it's getting late for both of us. But I don't care about any of that. What matters is they stood for pro-freedom, and that's what we're doing now. That's what we're trying to encourage other people to do. And
the biggest thing is, even if you don't agree with us, hold to your integrity.
Yeah.
You could totally disagree with me.
Yeah.
Have a completely opposing views, but if you have integrity on what you're saying and you stick to what you believe, good on you. Yeah. Honestly.
As long as it's pro-freedom.
I would hope it's pro-freedom.
Well, no. So hold on a second. That makes sense. I know that may not sound like it does, but it does, because you're saying if you're saying what you have to say with integrity, that's great. But if you're saying that I have to get the vaccine with integrity, you're right.
If you're saying if you have integrity in Hitler and think we should wipe out a certain, that's totally different. You're like, no.
At its basis level, what you said is correct. And I stretched it too far. No. What you said came out right. I stretched it too far. But I guess what I'm trying to say is pro-freedom. I believe in you have the freedom to think and say what you want to say, but don't try to cancel us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I will defend your right to say what you want to say, even if I don't agree with it.
Right. And that's the beauty of all of this.
Yes, that's correct. That is the beauty of all of it. And that's why our freedoms are so important, because it's not just for me, it's for everyone else too, regardless if we all agree.
Yeah. I want to talk about a delusion that I think is an issue now, more than ever. I think it's been an issue for the last few years, but with the vaccine, it's like really bad. And we were talking about Joe Rogan. If you guys haven't seen the new Joe Rogan podcast with, what was his name? The doctor. Could you look that up?
Yeah, I'll pull it up because
it's good stuff. But the point is
Dr. Sanjay Gupta.
Yeah.
It's 1718 is the episode number.
If you haven't watched that, go watch it. It is crazy good content.
And I would argue, well, I don't even have to argue it. They don't agree.
They don't agree
on a lot
all.
of things.
Yeah, 3/4 of the podcast is them not agreeing. But you know what they do?
The first 2 hours, yeah.
You know what they do at the end? They break out that bottle of whiskey and they have a cup of whiskey together.
Yeah, they're drinking it now. I haven't finished the episode, but I'm listening to it, and they've already broke it open. But
yeah.
You know what? They're doing what we all should be willing to do, and they're having a civil discourse about a topic. A couple of topics, but it's specifically COVID,
the hard topics
and the vaccine,
or the controversial stuff,
right? And they're respectful of each other, and they're willing to respect each other's views, and neither are trying to cancel the other.
Right, and that's the delusion I'm talking about. Yeah. That you can't have a civil discourse with
someone you disagree
somebody
with.
who has opposing view without getting into a screaming match or calling each other's names. Yeah. That's stupid. Act like an adult. Yeah. That's a delusion in itself. That's a plague right there.
It is a plague.
That's a problem. If someone came to us that had completely opposing views, said, "Hey, I want to come on the podcast,"
we should probably let them.
Yeah,
not probably. We should let them.
We should
if they really wanted to, and they had. They didn't want to come in here and start screaming and fighting. Yeah, let's have a conversation.
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer that challenging yourself.
Oh, yeah.
We just talked about in episode 7. Well, not just because this is about 2 weeks later. But in episode 7, we talked about challenging yourself. Jocko talks about challenging yourself every single day. And that's how you grow.
Sharpen
Another
yourself.
way to grow and challenge yourself is to embed yourself, not embed, but embed yourself in conversation with someone else's beliefs, someone else's religion, how they think, how their culture. You grow as a person. That's something. When I went to college, I met a lot of different people.
Yeah, and to touch on religion, you'll strengthen your own faith by learning about someone else's. But please go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just but that's a good point. I met Muslims. I've been around Christians my whole life. I met Muslims. I met Jews. I met all these different types of people.
Mm-hmm.
We sat down, had a cup of coffee. We didn't talk about religion all the time. I would ask people, I'm like, well, what's this?
I would ask them what you believe.
Yeah, I would ask them stuff. Some people in society would be like, that's really offensive. Why would you ask that? Like about their culture. Like, hey, why do you guys do this? Yeah. Somebody might take that, but you should be canceled. But they would be like, oh, that's cool you're asking. Like, here's why.
Most people, I would argue.
Yeah, no, 99% of people. Yeah. And they would answer and be like, oh, that's cool you're asking. Here's why we do this.
And even if you don't agree or understand what they're saying, the fact that you're willing to ask, that says a lot about you.
Yeah.
And then it gives them an opportunity to say something about them.
Yeah. Yeah. So in college, I worked with a guy who was a Muslim. And, I didn't understand it really. I understood it, but like it wasn't my culture. It's not something I grew up around. And it didn't confuse me, but it was just something different. And he was talking about how he had to go back to his home country and they had already picked him out a wife to marry.
Mm.
And he was going to bring her back with him. And I was like, and this guy's a Delaware State Trooper now. And I was like, what? I was like, what do you mean? Like, that's crazy. And I was like, tell me more. Like, that's crazy. The stuff he was telling me was crazy. I never heard of stuff. Like, it wasn't bad. It was just his culture.
Still, it was interesting to educate yourself on such a thing.
I grew as a person because I know more now about that culture.
Right.
So my point is the delusion that you can't sit down with somebody that's different than you, no matter what their difference is.
That's media driven, by the way.
It is media driven. It's a divide and conquer.
That's right.
And the fact is the belief is you should stay in your lane with your people and it's you against them. Everybody's in a box.
It's BS.
That's it. There's a label on everything now. Either you're straight or you're gay, you're lesbian, you're trans.
We're trying to bring back the label of American only.
Right. You're white. You're black.
Or humans, really.
Right. You know what? When I looked at him at work, we were talking about that. I'm like, yeah, You're not a Muslim guy. You don't look.
I was just about to say, what did you see when you looked at him?
A coworker.
You saw a person.
I had a coworker that had my back if I needed it.
Sure, yeah.
And now you know what he is, a trooper.
Yeah.
And you know, if you look at any of the police departments around
hopefully
the country,
he's a good one.
Oh, he's a great one.
There you go.
I have some stories that his car like caught on fire. He's had some weird experiences, but like. It's like, okay, let's take this for an example. And we're beating a dead horse here, but it's the point I'm trying to make. When you look at a big organization like the Delaware State Police or the Maryland State Police or Virginia, they're not all white, but they all wear that same uniform.
Right.
And when you see when one of them's driving behind you, you go, oh, crap.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what.
They might be white, black, brown, yellow, green, but they're wearing the uniform. And it's the same thing with the country.
Yeah.
They might be white, black, brown, yellow. They might speak a totally different language than you, but they're American. Treat them as such.
Sure.
That's my end rant.
No, I think that's really important to remind people of, and you know, we do predominantly talk about controversial issues, political, medical issues on this show. And I realize that can fire us up. The three of us here normally and our listeners, and rightfully so a lot of times. However, we need to stay based. We need to remind ourselves frequently, and I'm guilty of it too. We need to remind ourselves that we're not enemies, and the people across from the room from us, when it comes to opinions, matter as well. They're humans as well. And aside from what the media wants us to believe, they don't need to hate us and we don't need to hate them. We may have to agree to disagree, but we can still agree that we're friends. We can still agree that we're Americans. Hey, you don't even have to be friends if you don't want to, but you can be civil. You know what I mean? Yeah. Treat other people the way you want to be treated. And it's as simple as that, really. I really hate the cancel culture that's going on now. You know?
Both sides. Sorry, I was.
Yeah. No, in general, but
I don't think canceling has any place anywhere in society.
No, normally, right now, I think we're in extreme times, and I think in certain cases, in extreme cases, we need to shop, vote, protest, live with our wallets and our words. Integrity, like you said.
That's not. I'm talking about
saying that don't support businesses that don't support your rights and your freedoms, and that could potentially cancel them, and rightfully so if they're willing to be that way to people.
When I say cancel, I mean like wiping off the face of the earth.
Right,
like.
And I agree with you because that's a problem, and we're trying to get rid of it. So let's go out there. Let's remind ourselves and each other we're all in this together at the end of the day, because whatever happens on the flip side of this pandemic, this political catastrophe, all the crap, all this media BS, agenda-driven stuff, whatever happens, whatever flip side that we all come out on, that's my point. We're all going to come out on it together. And if we don't start treating each other the way we want to be treated, if we don't start trying to come together as simply Americans, as simply people who want to live free, we're all going to reap the consequences.
When you start realizing it's Americans versus the government, and not,
or just Americans versus tyranny.
Yeah, I mean, something you have to remember is, God willing, the president will be gone at some point.
Yeah,
the president will change, Congress will change again, God willing. Politicians will always change. The government will always be changing. But you know what doesn't change? Your neighbor.
For presumably a while.
Yeah. And no matter what happens with government, your neighbor's still going to be right there. And that goes with everybody. And it just drives the point that you need to realize who the people that actually listen to you and that hear you is not the government.
Oh, yeah.
It's the people around you.
Oh, yeah.
Even if they disagree with you.
Well, you know, welcome to Life as an American with American Sons. And
that went political.
It did, and that's okay.
That's fine.
Because unfortunately, so many aspects of life have been tied to the media and politics in general. But you know, I hope everyone takes home, if they can only take home one thing, is that we're at the end of the day, for better or worse, love them or hate them, love them or dislike them, I should say, because we don't want to hate people. But we're all in this together, and let's all start working together for freedom in general, freedom for everyone. And I hope you take that home. We're all in it together. I can't say it enough.
Yeah. Well, guys, if you got something out of this podcast, be sure to share it with somebody. If we gave something that Andy Frisella says, and I love this, if we give you value, give us value by sharing the podcast.
Yeah.
If you want to contact us, you can get up with us on Facebook, Instagram. Our email is americansciencepodcast@gmail.com. So if you want to get up, we answer everything. I think we're actually have like a green thing on our Facebook that says like typical replies in like hours or like
probably minutes.
Hour. Yeah. we're really quick about it. We love hearing from you guys. We love talking to people that listen to the podcast. And so we really want to know what you guys think of this type of setup.
We do.
More casual, really anything goes, and we just want to sit down and have a chat, more or less than a political show that we have basically all planned out for an hour.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yep. You got anything else?
Nope. Just don't forget, when you're out there buying your Wawa coffee or your Rural Farms coffee or gassing up your boat or whatever, thank a uniform.
Yep.
Doesn't matter which one it is. Thank a service member. Thank your police, your firefighters, your EMTs. Thank them all. They're holding the line for us. We often forget how important they are, but remember, next time you're out, maybe just go over there, shake their hand, buy their coffee. Thank them. Doesn't matter.
Yep. Thank you guys for listening.
All right,
we'll
take
see
care.
You in the next one.
I am the American son, never backing